Well, that was fast.
Whoa. The quick flip of the intro. You thought you were going to get the whole thing, but you did not. Welcome to tonight's edition of Before Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. No Ethan Skolnick, so a familiar face. We are down. We're kind of like the Miami Heat, right? We're missing our is he the franchise player? Am I giving him too much credit there?
Brady is the franchise player.
This is when he's like the young player playing way above his contract value. Anyway, I'm gonna send this show in the wrong direction. So thank you for joining us for Before Floor pregame show related to the Miami Heat. Milwaukee Bucks are in town. Before we dive into the matchup itself, want to start by telling you about our great sponsors. First, as you saw the graphic very quickly, bringing the heat, that's Biscayne Bay Brewing. One of the only independent breweries in South Florida, the official beer of the Miami Marlins. Tropical Bay IPA, I know, is Ethan's favorite. He's always calling that one out. Marlins Lager, I know, is popular. Ask for this by name at your local pub. Make sure that you start calling it out by name, and they'll get it ordered and in hopefully every bar across South Florida. So they are the official sponsor of this show. As well, we have Mark. Oh, okay, there we go. We have Mark Brown, PA. So any of your legal needs, if you need to set up anything related to building a better future with your right plan as it relates to estate planning, if you have any things where if you're single and you just want to make sure that your assets go to the right places in the event that you have some sort of catastrophic situation, or if you have a family and you need to do estate planning for them, you want a lawyer that's going to protect your best interest, go to Mark Brown, PA. He's located right there in South Florida. Call 954-566-5678. I know Ethan does a great deal of business and swears by this gentleman. He is a great friend of the network, Miami Heat fan as well. That's Mark Brown, PA. Again, let's flash that phone number up there one more time for these folks, 954-566-5678. Now, the dark and ominous discussion related to no Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo playing the defending champions. Who has the dirty pants in this room? Before we go to that discussion, because I know everyone likes potty talk in the middle of a pregame show, Brady, who's in, who is out? I guess let's focus on who the hell is in, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's obviously no Bam, no Jimmy again, and no Markieff, so that pretty much means Tyler's probably going to enter the starting lineup. And it basically comes down to, I think we know who's going to be coming off the bench. Like, there's going to be Max Strus minutes. Obviously, Gabe and Caleb are going to be thrown in there. But you just need production from your starters. I think it all comes down to that. Like, if you don't get production from those five guys or three guys, I think we know the three guys we're talking about, you need that production to win this type of game. But this feels like one of those games there's zero expectations around it. Like, you just got to go out there and just play basketball. Like, you're not expected to win this one on national television against a healthy Bucks team. A healthy Bucks team to a certain degree, obviously no Brook Lopez, but still, this just feels like one where there's no expectations. Guys like Tyler, Duncan, and Kyle have to just play well.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there with the no expectations thing. I'm actually going to flip everyone on their ear about that in a little bit. But the rest of our panel, I did not introduce by name. So let me go around the room. We have Ricky J. Mark, Alejandro Villegas. Did I get that correctly? I think I did. And then we have Jonathan Ramadan as well. I'm trying to get better with the name pronunciations live. So that is our esteemed panel. You're right. There is no expectations, but Jonathan, like at some level, I said on 5 on the floor while Jimmy and Bam are out that everyone should just feel good if we stay around 500. What are you looking for? Like, what are your expectations? One, and is there anything that you're looking for tonight with no Bimmy, no Bimmy? Listen to me, no Bam, no Jimmy. That really sticks out that you're looking for against this Bucks defense?
Well, I mean, no Bibby, no Jam. That's going to be a real tough one to have. But as far as going over the next couple of weeks without them, or not sure how long Jimmy's going to be out, but I think staying over 500 should be the goal, right? You have a talented enough team to beat some of these lesser teams, right? Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, that's one of the more talented backcourts in the NBA, regardless of who else is playing. So that backcourt alone should let you beat some of the lesser teams in this upcoming schedule moving forward. But as far as tonight goes, I think if we don't play a near perfect game when it comes to shooting the ball, rebounding the ball, second chance opportunities for the other teams, and just finishing, like finishing possessions with rebounds. If we don't play a near perfect game tonight, I'm going to find it's going to be just incredibly hard to beat the defending champions because they have Giannis coming back. We're already undersized. We're super thin in the front court with no Morris coming back tonight. Like I said, we have to be almost perfect tonight. But over the next couple of weeks, I think if we stay around 500, stay out of the play-in, we're in pretty good position coming in back with not only Bam and Jimmy, but with Oladipo coming back in the future.
See, Jonathan tied a bow on his comments with some positivity there at the end, but my next person I'm going to go to may not be that nice with us about this matchup. Ricky J. Mark, the Bucks have won 10 of 11. They beat Cleveland on Monday. Since November 17th, they are tied with Phoenix for the best record in the NBA during that span. So this is kind of like a Memphis team coming through here that's playing really well. Expectations aside, do the Heat even have a shot tonight, Ricky?
No. It might be negative, but I'm always going to be real with this audience and honest. The situation right now is not favorable for the Heat. At least the guys over at NBA on TNT who never watch Heat games yet always have an opinion about them are going to watch tonight, or maybe their interns are going to watch tonight. And of course, this doesn't include Ernie Johnson, who everybody loves, but their interns are going to watch tonight, take notes, forward it back to Chuck, and then Chuck's going to develop an opinion based on tonight, which does not properly represent this Heat team whatsoever. This Heat team is missing two of its best players. They are not going to play as well as they probably should tonight. I mean, even if they do play the perfect game that Aram Lakan just mentioned, they're not on the same level as the Bucks right now. And I don't think that means that all is lost. It's just that where Miami is right now on December 8th, Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, will likely not be where they will be on April 15th, 2022. And I think if I can be positive or realistic or whatever, the idea or the hope is that come April 16th, 2022, this team will be healthy, better off, and well-positioned regardless of the seed. Hopefully it's 5 or above to make a lot of noise in this playoff run and potentially sneak into the NBA Finals. But for the time being, tonight, it's not going to end well for Miami. I don't expect them to. It's not because Miami sucks or anything. It's just they don't have the personnel, and their best probably won't be up to par with even a decent Milwaukee Bucks team. That's just where it looks like to me, and I'm more than welcome to be wrong tonight and see a Heat win, but I just don't see it.
I appreciate the subtle hope trafficking as you point to April. That is unlike a typical Ricky remark to me. So I like
there.
that.
It's always there.
Yeah, no. So I'm with that. Brady, I'm going to go to you here on this one. I was going to go to Ethan, but he dropped out. I guess he feels like he arrived mid-second quarter like Heat fans and just figured out I'm going to go to the concession stand. So Tyler Hero is shooting 47% from the field and 43% from three as a reserve, compared to 40 and 32% splits as a starter. Brady, I know right now they have no choice, but should we be making anything of the fact that when it appears as if Tyler is in a more expanded role that the efficiency is going down, or is that just the nature of the more usage right now with no guys in?
Yeah, I think it's just the volume going up in that state. Like the games he's playing on starters is not like he's plugging into a bunch of the regular starters. He's replacing Jimmy and Bam in this instance. That it just kind of changes everything. But I think the interesting thing about that, like I'm not one to think he should be in the starting lineup. Like I think he's in a perfect slot. It's just on the starters stepping up. But the numbers are pretty crazy that Tyler has looked at so much. I talked about this on the last pod after that last game, that I think it's since the beginning of November, they're combined 31 points down when Tyler enters the game at any point in the first quarter. Like that's just, you can't win like that. It just feels like you're just putting too much on a 21-year-old who's obviously going to be a 6 man of the year favorite if he continues playing 6 man, but it's just a lot of weight and you're not going to win games like that. But I don't think it's as much the starter versus bench thing in the short term that we've seen it. I just think it's what happens when you try to plug into so many different roles on a kind of broken Heat offense in existence.
Yeah, no, you touched on it, and I'm going to go to Ethan here since he snuck in finally. And I do want to tell you guys that Tyler Hero is at 21.5 on Prize Picks for points. I think just based off volume, he's an over tonight just because they're going to need him. And so Brady touched on the fact that Tyler keeps coming in games and they're getting their ass kicked when he goes in. What do you make of that, Ethan? Like, what is going on to start games? Who is that on? Is it on the point guard? Is it on the backcourt? Is it on the head coach? Like, where do you land on like the poor starts?
Well, I mean, they don't have enough offensive players in their starting lineup. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, you've got, regardless of what they're getting out of Dwayne Dedmon, which is way more than anybody anticipated when he signed. I mean, he's never been a guy who's been relied upon to be a starting center that you're going to run offense through. PJ Tucker has given them more offensively, I think, than we anticipated also. But that's not his game. That's not what he's there for. And Duncan Robinson is not a guy who can create anything. And if he's not giving you gravity, which he is not giving to the degree that he did before because he's missing shots, you're really talking about three guys, I mean, that you have to carry offensively. And then if Kyle Lowry doesn't feel like scoring until the third quarter, then you're really talking about four spots. So, I mean, they just don't have – I mean, we can talk about defense, and I know that's where Spoelstra always goes. And also, if you look at the rotations, which we talked about last night on 5 on the floor with Alana and Alex, like, okay, he's playing Caleb Martin 30-plus minutes. He's playing a lot of Gabe Vincent because he's leaning defense right now because they don't have Bam to cover up for everything. But still – they have to score. And, when Hero came in the game, they'd scored 6 points in 6.5 minutes. And I guess what I don't understand, and we discussed this last night, was why Hero played so sparingly in the last game. I mean, he is their hope right now, essentially. He is the only guy on the roster who can consistently create a shot. And I'm including the point guard they're paying $30 million. It's Tyler Hero right now. That's it. And so they have to play through him. And you're right. I mean, Greg, there's no way he doesn't score 21.5 tonight. Like at Prize Picks, that's a given. Like everybody sign up right now with the code 5. I don't know what the efficiency is going to be, but he's going to score in the mid to high 20s because somebody has to. The only way he doesn't is if they're blown out and he doesn't play the fourth quarter and you get a lot of Strus. But that's the other thing, and I know this has been a big thing for Brady. Strus has to be playing. Like you have to get your best offensive guys on the floor right now. You just do.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. The last game was really dumbfounding to me. And I actually want to, since you mentioned defense in that, and that's where Spo's staple is going to be. I do think that there's an element of a game like tonight where you really just hope that everybody shoots really well from three, and that can help close the gap a bit. Sometimes this can just make things so much easier. But Jonathan, I want to ask you this question. Giannis Antetokounmpo, there's only 2 teams that he has shot under 50% for his career against. That's the Warriors and the Heat at 49%. So it's just right there hovering. What do you see them doing with Giannis tonight? And what are the implications of the fact that with no Jimmy, you essentially have PJ on like who guards Giannis? And if it's PJ, then what the hell are they going to do with Chris Middleton?
I mean, you got to let him cook you, I guess. Right? You maybe
I
play
thought you were
some
frozen,
sort of zone
Jonathan.
where you build. I was just frozen in thought. That's what I was frozen in. But yeah, I mean, you kind of maybe think you build a wall and you let everybody else beat you. That's kind of what you do this time because, I mean, odds are, in my opinion, I feel like PJ Tucker or whoever is guarding Giannis is going to end up getting in foul trouble. So I think we're going to have to start going away from a man-to-man pretty soon, honestly. But the issue with that is once we go into a zone, we have heavy rebounding issues. So I see Milwaukee getting a ton of second chance points there. So defensively, I don't know what we can do. Greg, you mentioned that stat. I mean, how many of those games were without Bam Adebayo, right? I mean, without Bam Adebayo, I don't know if we're going to hold Giannis under 50%. I mean, he's the only guy, maybe him and Draymond are the 2 mold guys that can slow down Giannis just a little bit by themselves. But I think without Bam, no Jimmy as well, it's going to be a really tough time. Look for this team to move into a really team defense kind of zone probably. But then we're probably going to get outboarded. So not going to give too much hope for this game.
I mean, to Jonathan's point, they've beaten this team without Jimmy. And they've played them without Jimmy a couple of other times. They have not beaten this team without Bam.
No. Different animal.
So, it's a different thing. I'm waiting, Ricky, to me, just to pivot here, I'm waiting for them to have the game that Memphis had the other night where everybody steps up without their best players, right? Like, and I feel like they had it a little bit in Indiana, but then we see, Indiana wants to trade the whole roster. So I don't know, how much we take out of that. because they're kind of, even though they're talented, they're dysfunctional. But like, shouldn't we expect that to happen once? Like we get an outlier game where like all the Heat role players just play well at once.
I think it already happened, and you mentioned it against
Indiana.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Look, I think the basketball gods gave Miami a win at Indiana without some of their best players. I think if maybe we can go back in time and get the Infinity Stones and reverse it so that way we keep losing in Indiana, but maybe get that win later on. I don't see that happening. But the thing is, I think, like I said, we might have already seen that. And to your point regarding Memphis, let's take a look at the players on Memphis without their best player and Miami's players. I don't know. I don't know if that's a comparison that Heat fans want to make if they want to keep their fan egos intact, because the guys they got over there, if we were to swap out some of those guys, realistically, I'd probably do a lot of those in a heartbeat. Dylan Brooks, for example, my God, please come to Miami. So I think, right now it's weird because you have a team that's built around the big three that, and this might trigger some Heat fans, but sorry, you wish were as good as some of the guys that you're seeing out in LA that are struggling. Jimmy's not LeBron, Kyle Lowry's not Russ or prime Chris Paul, and Bam is not AD, even though AD has his moments where he doesn't do what he's supposed to given his talent, right? They're not those guys. If you had those guys, maybe
you would be worse.
I don't know about that. But, if you had those guys in terms of talent, which is what Miami had, and I believe this was discussed on a recent Feel the Heat episode, I think this week, it's like, this is, it's easier when those guys are at that level, but Kyle Lowry's 35, Jimmy is 32, but his legs are 3 years older given what he was playing on in Chicago for all those years. And Bam, unfortunately, is out, but, you don't know what you're going to get out of him every night. Sorry, it's unfortunate, but these are the cards we've been dealt. You just got to ride the wave and hope that everybody gets healthy. And like I said during my previous answer, that they'll be ready in April. And then if that happens, all bets are off.
I mean, they've dealt themselves some of their own cards, Greg. That's the other thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the
roster spots.
The roster spots, yeah.
I can't get over it, and I won't go off on a tangent here because we're going to close relatively soon, but like, the non-functional roster spots was not an issue for me at full strength. And as each player got injured, it was going to become more and more of a talking point for me. I think it's a point of contention that is really worth talking about basketball wise. Like, we can shelve all the stuff, and you guys know I love transaction talk and all the narrative stuff, but strictly on the court, there's no case to be made to be doing what they're doing with roster spots. So that they made this bed, so they shall sleep in it. I guess we'll go around for picks now because we're getting up here to the 20-minute mark, and I want people the opportunity to check in on the channel, as we get closer to the game. So Brady, I'll start with you since I know that you are on site at the arena and you've done a great job of blocking out the noise, as Ethan Skolnick, as Coach Spoelstra would say. What's your prediction? Here's the thing, though. This is what I want to know. The Bucks are 6.5 point favorites. Are they going to cover that? We're going to go a little deeper than just do they win or do they not win?
Yeah, I do think they cover that. Like, this just does not feel like a game that they win. Like, seriously, I've said sometimes, like, these trap games that they could kind of pull out. Like, this is a trap game for Milwaukee that they have no expectation they could kind of pull it out. This just does not feel like one of them, because it feels like even if you get the ultimate pairing of Duncan playing well, Kyle playing well, and Tyler's playing well, I still don't know if that's enough against this team. Like, just from what we've seen from them lately, this Drew, Chris, Giannis pairing has just been so good as of late, and you don't have a Bam Adebayo to try to match that. Like, this just does not feel like a winnable game to me. I feel like maybe this was close at the start of the second. They kind of blow it late in the second, and it just gets ugly from there. I don't have a lot of confidence in this one.
Ricky, what you got?
Jeez, Brady, where are your guts? I mean, man, you sound like a Knicks fan. I think
Never.
much of the same. I think Brady mentioned, I think he might have my notes, because that's kind of how I saw this game going, where it's close at first, and then Duncan remembers he's Duncan Robinson and stops hitting threes. And then, that's pretty much it. Because even if he goes 9 for whatever, can't defend a post box or whatever they call those things. So he's going to have to worry about those guys on the other side. And given Milwaukee's firepower, sorry, that's just not where Miami's at right now. This is not the team. This is not the depleted Bucks team that Miami blew out to start the season.
Instead of a tropical blanket, this is a wet blanket of a prediction cycle. Jonathan, do you have any? I mean, can they even stay within 6.5 points? Give me something here. Come on, y'all.
All right. So here's the path for us to stay within 6.5 points.
Thank you.
We have to finish possessions with rebounds, right? We have to keep the ball moving side to side. The defensive players of Milwaukee are too good to beat one-on-one. So we have to keep the ball swinging around side to side, keep looking for the open shots. I think we're going to have to see big games from Caleb Martin and Max Strus. I mean, Caleb gave us a really, really good game. I know he's a little sore coming off of it, but I think those two guys off the bench, if they're able to just do a little bit offensively, in addition to what the starting five is able to do, there's hope for this game. If we're not able to keep them off the boards, we see them getting rebounds, second chance points over and over again. I think that's the recipe for disaster. So, hey, we'll cover the spread. Let's say we get it done, man. We have a good team collective effort. I'll put some hope in there. We'll cover the spread. Not sure if we'll win, but at least something, right?
Ethan, close us out.
Speaking of guts, the Bucks hate the Heat's guts, and so this idea that this is going to be a trap game, for them, there is no chance of that. I mean, literally, the social media team taking the shot at the Heat about we'll move on with our season.
It was well played.
It was very well done. They just hate the Heat. I mean, they do. And here's the thing about it. When they get up on the Heat, they don't let down. Look at the playoffs last year. In terms of two of those games. Look at the game earlier in Milwaukee. I think this is the kind of game tonight that is going to start to put more pressure on ownership and the front office to do what Greg is kind of hinting at there, which is accelerating the timetable to get some help. It's one thing when you lose on the road. You get blown out at home in front of your fans, and you got a couple days to think about it after you just got blown out. If they lose this game by 20 plus, which I do think is what's going to happen tonight, the pressure is going to start to build a little bit. You mentioned it, Jonathan. Caleb Martin was sore after playing the last game. Do you think Caleb Martin insisted in any world that he would be playing 31 minutes in a game for the Heat this year? Seriously. And he's been good, okay?
Yeah,
he's a two-way. This is they need to get some reinforcements here. If it's not Morris by Saturday or Butler by Saturday, we got to start to have a conversation. But I have the guts to say that the Bucks hate the Heat's guts, and I don't think they're going to let off tonight. I just don't.
Tonight's a Rex Chapman throwback night.
Oh, God. You're going to pick him tonight? You are?
Yeah. No. Like, truthfully, if I'm really putting my money on it, I wouldn't go there. But to stay on brand, Max Strus has a Rex Chapman-like night, and the Heat win.
Because he's going to do that from the bench? Because, Eric's got to actually put him in the game. I don't.
Who's Sasha Danilovic in this situation?
That's where we're at this time.
My last thought of Sasha Danilovic, and I'll let Greg close, is always leaving practice smoking a cigarette. That's all I remember about Sasha Danilovic. But
oh my gosh, there's been a couple cigarette smokers that have came through the locker room. That's funny that you bring that up, though. Gosh, there's another really famous one that's escaping me. Was it Vladimir Stepania, maybe?
Yes, he was. I mean,
I don't want to character assassinate him if he was a non-smoker.
Well, just assume European. But I named my daughter after Sasha Danilovic because I was that taken by. I'm just kidding. Anyway, Greg, thanks for filling in tonight. Appreciate it. Everybody use that code, Prize Picks. Greg, take us out.
So just want to one more time shout out our sponsors, Mark Brown PA. Alejandro will flash that number on the screen as we go. Shout out to Biscayne Bay Brewing, always here sponsoring every pregame show. You'll have post up after the show, 5 on the floor. There's your number for Mark Brown PA, 954-566-5678. Tell him Ethan sent you, and thank you for joining.
Halftime spaces.
Halftime spaces. Great call. Paces and spaces.
Good night.
Ooh, tonight's gonna hurt. Oh, it's just us two.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it's.
Ramla Khan and Ricky.
It might be
Ricky and Ramla Khan.
Your business in a cost-effective way.
Is from Brady Hawk and others. We do not have a paywall there, and the.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. and Pat we trust. Inspire, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's tonight's floor plan. I got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. And sponsored by our friend Mark Brown. You can find it at markbrownpa.com. This is where you go for all of your needs when it comes to estate planning, or if you got to get your title done, you're closing on a property, you reach out to Mark, marcbrownpa.com. Our guest tonight, and you can also find her on the Feel the Heat podcast. Well, it's the podcast. It's also a streaming show. You can find that on the YouTube channel. Alana Tauhauer. Did I do that correctly, Alana?
Close enough, Tauhauer. We'll get there.
We won't get there.
It's only been like almost a year now. It's fine.
I feel like that was pretty darn close.
That's the closest you've been.
Yes.
I feel like grading me on a curve that I should get credit for that one.
Okay, you got like an A- then.
Well, I'll take it. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Lisa Simpson would be unhappy with it, but I'll take it. All right, let's get to it here. We're going to have some fun tonight because everybody is stuck in the mud. I was actually out at the Hard Rock tonight, not the stadium, but the hotel, the Hard Rock Live, the casino hotel. And they were having fun out there tonight, which they should. Tyler Hero was out there. Udonis Haslam's getting honored at the Sports Illustrated Awards as a hometown hero. Dwayne Dedman and Caleb Martin were going to be there. Tyler was dressed in something which we'll discuss with Alana because she covers these kind of issues on Feel the Heat. We'll get into that later. But again, it's a night off during a bad stretch, and the Heat are in a bad stretch. We can't sugarcoat that. They're not playing well. They're banged up. Jimmy Butler is not going to play on Wednesday. Markieff Morris, who we had heard that the Heat were hopeful could play on Wednesday, is not going to play on Wednesday either. So the earliest for both of them would be Saturday against Chicago. They still don't have Oladipo. They still don't have Bam. Obviously, Bam had quote-unquote successful surgery, but he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks from the time of the surgery. It's already been a week, and we still hear it potentially it could be longer, but we'll see how that goes. So this is a bad stretch. We want to tell you how to survive it. Okay, so I'm going to start here with Greg because he is Mr. Green Shoots. He's not going to sunshine pump you today, but he's going to give you some reasons that you can get through this to the other side, and then Alex and Alana are going to weigh in. So go ahead, Greg.
I bet the audience right now is going, what is this guy about to say to us to try to sell to us about this stretch, to put lipstick on this situation? And truthfully, like, if we're just going to talk, like, get down to brass tacks, what do you want to look for wins and losses wise? For me, play 500 basketball. When Jimmy and Bam are out, like, that's, so there's one measuring stick, a metric to watch. The other thing that I think for me, what I'll be watching is when guys have increased roles, how they respond to that, different lineup combinations, things that Spoelstra is going to inevitably have to adjust and try. Seeing what things work, I think that can be informative to what could take place later on in the season. So I think that there's things like that to watch, but you do kind of have to put your diehard Heat fan hat on and embrace watching how Kyle and Duncan awkwardly figure out this backcourt situation. Like, there's things like that, games within the game that I think we can watch for. And like, that's how I will approach this, knowing that essentially what can we expect more than about 500 basketball until Bam and Jimmy are back?
Alex, what are you looking for?
I mean, I'm looking for them to kind of figure out the whole rebounding situation, right? Like, I just think the way that it's flip-flopped back and forth from elite in these first few weeks of the season to really below average the past couple of weeks without Bam, it's just been pretty crazy to me, understanding that Bam is a huge part of what they do. I think they got to get that part back on track. And I know a lot of it is because of Bam and also the not having Markieff Morris all this time. You just, you're smaller, right? So it's not necessarily a roster thing. It's not necessarily Spo's fault. It's more of a collective thing. And I just think that, when they have a smaller margin for error, this is that's going to be one of those things that I just think is going to end up determining a lot of these games going forward.
Alana?
At this point, I'm not even watching the team as a whole. I'm just watching individual players because to me right now, this team is what it is. And we're not going to go down the negative road here, but for me, it's still watching guys like Tyler, keep up the good work and exceed expectations. It's focusing on PJ doing more, I think, offensively than anyone necessarily expected. And even guys like Caleb Martin stepping up, even though maybe not enough to get us wins. So at this point, I am not really looking at it as like collective basketball. I'm just zeroing in on what different guys can bring. And when the health comes back, then we can kind of put them, into play, and their individual talent will hopefully propel us forward. But right now there's just no team game to me.
I'm kind of looking at the collective temperament of the team. These stretches without players, you can do what Memphis is doing, or you can do what Miami is doing. And I think that's what's frustrating about last night, again, without getting too much into the negative here, is that Memphis lost, there's no question who their best player is. Like, it's not a debate, okay? It's not like a Bam Jimmy debate with the Heat. We know who their best player is. It's John Morant, and they haven't had John Morant, and they're blowing people out because other guys are embracing the opportunity. And I think what is frustrating here for me to watch this team is they don't look like they're having any fun right now. And they did early in the season. It's starting to feel like last year a lot. And that is not what you were hoping for. Now, last year was somewhat COVID related. In addition to the injuries, you hope that you don't run into that now, because that would make everything much worse. I mean, they wouldn't even be able to field 5 players if they go through one of those spells. But I want to see them enjoy it. And we were seeing that early in the year. You were seeing the young guys, play it, like I said, above their heads. PJ Tucker fitting in well, Kyle Lowry making everybody better. All of that stuff has kind of stopped. I feel like it's not just the Bam thing and the injury and the Jimmy thing. It's also just like, to me, it's Duncan. It's like the look on Duncan Robinson's face kind of like exemplifies where this team is right now. He just doesn't look like he's enjoying it. Like, he doesn't, everybody gets on him for the podcast. Like, he has fun on his podcast. He doesn't seem to be having fun on the court.
There's real pressure now, right? Especially with Duncan.
Yeah. Well, and I think the whole team, I think, feels that, to your point, and those expectations getting ramped up the way that they looked good and they were having fun. And then now you get punched in the mouth. Some of these guys are probably learning how to navigate that and react to it. And it's just, there's a part of this that I think you're deflated when your best players are out. And there's also the part of like that. I don't know. I just think that it's easy to have fun when you're winning, and it's like real quick, you can change the look on your face when you're losing. So I just don't know if, like, maybe if they were to win 2 straight, if all of a sudden they would have a press conference where Kyle and Jimmy are making jokes back and forth. It may not be Jimmy up at the podium because he's not playing, but like, so that's why that stuff changes so quickly and it's so energetic that I just don't know how to quantify it.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And there's always the question, right? Does winning lead to chemistry? Does chemistry lead to winning? And it's probably a little bit of both, but a lot of, I mean, we were sort of enjoying some individual stories with this team early. And I even feel with Heat fans that they're starting to turn on certain guys. Like the Kyle Lowry experience was a hell of a lot of fun during the preseason and the first 2 weeks of the season. And now it's not as much fun. Like, even for me and as a sort of quote unquote journalist observer, like I would like to watch him score more and complain less, I guess, I mean, and some other guys on the team, again, Caleb plays with great energy. Max plays with great energy when he plays, right? Which is another question here, and which was weird that he didn't play in the last game after being the only guy who really could do anything offensively against Milwaukee. But I do feel like, from a fan perspective, it feels dour right now. Like it feels like last year. Whereas there does seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel with this team. I just don't think anybody can see it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise. I'm very much anti-Heat Twitter at this point. It's been getting worse and worse. But every game, I feel like blame needs to be put on someone, even though there's actual tangible things to blame. And I tweeted this earlier today, but both of your stars are now injured. Duncan is shooting horribly. And then you have Kyle, who, in my opinion, he's doing what he can with what he has. I think that people, they saw a side of Kyle when he first got there, and it was getting better. His offense was clicking. And then he lost Bam and Jimmy. And Duncan isn't hitting either. So now all of a sudden, everything that he was used to doing, making them look better and giving them better looks than, necessarily himself, all of a sudden now everything's on him. I don't hold it against Kyle. I think it'll come and I think he'll figure out his game. But to me, I don't know. I feel like also, not to say that these guys aren't necessarily listening to the fan base, but they hear what people are saying. Bam called, Heat Twitter out a while ago or however many weeks ago now for the shooting the threes thing. So I don't know if that's part of it too, where fans are down. So they're also down. It's an endless cycle. It's a catch-22 at this point. I understand why fans are frustrated and sad and discouraged, but at the same time, there are things to look forward to. It's early in the season. There are logistical reasons and logical reasons for why we're not doing well right now. So to me, it doesn't help when everyone's just complaining all the time.
Yeah, and Alex, first, Alana, I think you're a good point. They do hear the stuff. I mean, look, to Miami Heat Beat's credit, Dwayne Dedmon adopted a nickname from Heat Beat. Duncan Robinson hears everything. I know that. Tyler hears everything. I know that because some of it's come back to me and to others. I think honestly, the only one who tunes all that stuff out is Jimmy. Like the rest of the team, I think is
because Jimmy's a psycho in the best way possible. I don't think Kyle really cares either.
Kyle
I think
too,
Jimmy and Kyle are cut from the same cloth. But we saw, what the trade deadline was doing to both Duncan and Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that does have an impact on them.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I mean, we see this in another sport too. Everybody was saying when I talk Dolphins, I end up talking Heat. Well, I'm going to talk Dolphins now while I'm talking Heat. We've seen what's happened to the Dolphins since the trade deadline passed there, and everybody knew that Tua was the quarterback the rest of the year. I don't think that's a coincidence that they're playing better now once that stuff passes. But yeah, I do think that some of these other guys are affected. It's funny you mentioned Kyle because somebody close to Jimmy said to me, he's an asshole, but he's our asshole. And I think that is kind of a way to describe it, that Jimmy and Kyle sort of have this I don't really care attitude, which sometimes can be better than what some of these other guys are doing when they're processing it. But I want to get to the Duncan thing with you, Alex, because I have a couple of theories here on Kyle. I don't think that Kyle and Duncan, and this is not reporting, okay? I'm not saying there's a rift or they don't like each other. Nothing like that. I want to be very clear on that. But they don't look connected as a backcourt. You know what I mean? Like there's certain, like Kyle, I don't know. Kyle picks up when Gabe's in there. Like he picks up when Tyler's in there. I don't know if it's that they don't fit from a basketball perspective it doesn't look right to me when Lowry and Robinson are playing together. Am I reading too much into that?
I don't know. I saw when you said that in our chat earlier today, and it's an interesting observation because I haven't really picked up on that at all. And to me, when I think about their chemistry together, it mostly just comes down to that the 3-point shooting, right? And I think a lot of that stuff goes away if they're just hitting more shots. But really, when I'm trying to visualize the way that they play together, I feel like I can visualize plenty of times where Lowry is finding Duncan wide open or he's looking to hit Duncan, right? And
he's just not making it.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I think Lowry and Duncan make a lot of sense basketball wise. We know what the results have been so far. We know that not enough shots have fallen for either of those guys. I don't know, man. Like I think the way that last night played out was really ugly from start to finish, right? Because it was, you should not be down at home to that team by so much throughout an entire game. Even if, Jimmy's going in and out of the game, you're already missing Bam, you're already missing Markieff, et cetera, et cetera. That was a horrible loss. So I get why people are down right now. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But I'm looking at Lowry and Duncan right now. Like they're both kind of on the up and up a little bit based from where they've been in the past few weeks, right? Like I think Duncan, even though last night went 2 for 5, nothing from 3 specifically, nothing crazy, gave you 2 other field goals. And he's had more nights like that recently where it's like he's not just shooting threes, right? And it's stuff that we've been talking about forever where it's like the teams overplay you get in there, and he's actually making an effort to dig deep into the paint and make something happen, whether he's going up for the layup or not. And I think he had kind of regressed back in that area after making some steps there last year. So I'm glad to see Duncan really making them pay for overplaying him and getting deep into the paint. And I just think Lowry has looked better as a scorer, and same thing, actually getting into the paint in the past few games. I thought he had a pretty good game yesterday. So although things are still weird and ugly, specifically because of how last night went, I think those 2 guys are on the up and up, and that's kind of what we've been waiting for.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, quickly to jump in on Lowry as a scorer in the post-game presser last night, and you can find this on 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Kyle was talking, and he said something like, I don't know if I should shoot more and he knew he shouldn't say or shoot less because that's obviously not what he needs to do. So he said something like, I don't know if I should need to shoot more or shoot more. Like he said it like twice. And that to me was like, it's a moment where he's being very candid. Like he's trying to figure out how the hell he's supposed to navigate this thing. You see him last night, only 9 field goal attempts, 5 of 9. So he's efficient, 8 assists. So he's getting to some good offense. I just hope he builds on that because you can definitely, I mean, he's articulating to you that this adjustment period is definitely, he's trying to navigate that whole thing.
Well, the other thing about it, Alana, is that, you know, he didn't play with these guys before. So what Duncan Robinson did without him, you know, until you're actually playing with him on the floor, like, I mean, he hasn't seen it. Like, I mean, maybe he's seen it in practices, but he hasn't seen it in games, certainly at home. Like even he said about Hero, the Hero is better than he expected. Like you come into a new situation, like your buddy can tell you, okay, this is what Tyler's like to play with. This is what Duncan's like to play with. This is what this guy. But I mean, at least with Butler and Bam and Duncan and Tyler and Dedmon to a certain degree, because he was here last year, and Max and Gabe, because they were here for a certain period of time last year, there's some familiarity. But Kyle's coming into this trying to essentially, it's like, again, being the quarterback of a team that you haven't played with before. Like you don't know how the line blocks or how the receivers, you know, where they want the ball and all this. So I get it from an adjustment period. I guess I don't know. I don't see joy with him on the floor. And I don't know if, and I watched him a lot in Toronto, obviously earlier in his career, Memphis, Houston were different situations, but I just playing with DeMar, like there seemed to be joy when he played. I haven't seen it yet. And, you know, when I read the stories that he did with Mark Spears and Jeff Zilgett, it does still feel like there's this adjustment on and off the floor, basically.
I don't know. For me, I just think that he's in a new environment where the culture, not to overuse that phrase, but is very different. And he's kind of like working off of Jimmy's aura at this point. Like I think the whole point about Kyle coming in, not only to play with Jimmy, but to kind of be a second voice when Jimmy isn't enough, or, you know, Jimmy doesn't want to be the only one who maybe is a little bit harder on Bam or who's trying to uplift Tyler. So I think that his role, you know, X's and O's aside on the Heat is so different that to me, that's all that it's showing. I think that this is just a side of him that's been there, but again, it needs to come out a little bit more. And I think to your point, the adjustment period is a really weird one because he not only is on a new team, but now he's on a new team that's completely disjointed, looks different, literally night in and night out. I don't think their morale, to your earlier point, is very high. So I just think that Kyle is dealing with a lot right now on and off the court. I think he looked like he was having fun when he first got here. I think when things were clicking, he did show signs of that. I just think right now he's so, you know, zoned in on trying to figure it out and trying to kind of not only see what he can do for himself to improve, but how he can kind of carry this team on his back for now.
Yeah, no, I think all that's fair. When we come back, we're going to have a little more fun, but I also want to talk about Eric Spoelstra because he has coached all kinds of different teams and how he makes the adjustment to kind of keep their morale strong. Because I thought some of Eric's comments last year where he put a lot of it on himself, I felt that was intentional. Before we do, I want to mention again, a lot of his appearances here are sponsored by Mark Brown PA. Reach out to markbrownpa.com if you're looking for an estate plan, if you're young with a family. Certainly that's something that you want to look into. Also, again, he's got a title company right there in-house in his law firm. He can handle your closing for you. The phone number, I forgot to mention it earlier, 954-566-5678. Big Miami sports fan. In fact, hung out with him at halftime outside of Section 109 yesterday, which is very close to the Biscayne Bay Brewing kiosk, by the way. 954-566-5678. We're also sponsored by our friends over at Intense Nutrition. I was just up there today. They're going to put me through a whole before and after thing. So, yeah, you know, when you see me with a six-pack in about 6 weeks, you'll know why. Go Intense Nutrition, okay? Check them out on Instagram, also on Twitter at IN_nutritionFL. That's Intense Nutrition. They can get you the Intense Cleanse and Detox, help you lose 10 to 15 pounds in 10 days, or the specific stacks, whether you're a budding athlete, whether you're nearly 30 years old like myself or something like that, or whether you just need to fight cold and flu season. So go up to Intense Nutrition, 954-775-0257 at 2540 North University Drive in Coral Springs. All right, let's get.
All right, that was part of our podcast today on 5 on the Floor, talking a little bit about how Heat fans should handle this situation with so many Miami Heat injury players. So this is a starting five for tonight. Caleb Martin actually makes it to the starting five. So it's going to be Dwayne Dedmon, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin in place of Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, and Kyle Lowry. So again, Dwayne Dedmon, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, PJ Tucker, and Kyle Lowry. That's a starting five for the Miami Heat tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks at a game that should be starting in around 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on what the TV has prepared for us tonight. Remember, this game is on national television, so you might be able to actually catch it up in one of the national channels if you don't watch it in the local ones. Remember, also, I want to invite you guys for Pace and Spaces at halftime. As soon as the second quarter is over, we're going to be there with Sean, Tony, and Marco doing our Pace and Spaces. So you guys are welcome to come and join us as soon as the second quarter is over. And as soon as the game is over, the actual game is over, the fourth quarter, you're welcome to come here to the YouTube channel because we're going to be having the post-up show hosted by Royal Shepherd. Have a good night. Enjoy the game, and we will see you later tonight here on the 5